The day sloped toward evening. The sun was setting behind the roofs of houses. Adriana sat motionless behind the wheel of her car, thinking intensely, putting the phone aside. She had called her husband several times already, but Michael had not picked up. And now his phone had been disconnected. But where are you, Michael? Why aren't you always there when she needs you? Adriana whispered irritably. She pulled some gummy candies out of her purse and
Popped one into her mouth. She always did that when she was nervous. Her father had taught her that when she was little, Daddy raised her alone. Mom had died very young, so Adriana remembered everything he told her. She just
didn't have anyone else to guide her through anything in life. Adriana wished for candy and watched from the window of her car drive to the office. What was the use? She certainly wouldn't find him there. Michael often disappeared somewhere, but never reported his movements. She went back to thinking about the cheating. Why did it keep her up? Maybe it was her intuition that Dad believed in so much. Or maybe she was just getting paranoid. They hadn't been married long enough to have to be looking for fun on the side. Or was it something else? Adriana leaned back in her seat and closed her eyes, immersed in memories. A few years before, Adriana's father had learned that he was terminally ill. That was why, when the girl had turned 22, he had suddenly insisted that she marry quickly. Adriana was not aware of his state of health, so she stubbornly persisted. However, her father was very persistent. He was really very concerned about her future. Apparently, my father said, "Dad, what are you so worried about?" "All right, I promise you can take care of the contract yourself." "I trust you completely," Adriana answered, but Daddy didn't have time to take care of anything. He died suddenly. Adriana was the sole heiress of a large business of several real estate firms. It was a very big blow to her, the loss of her father. She realized then that it was not for nothing that he had asked her to find a husband. He already knew that soon he would not be able to care for them. Adriana was being cared for at that time by several young men. Among them were two friends. They both actively showed signs of attention towards her. Adriana liked both Michael and Benjamin, but she could not decide which of them to favor. The guys competed in who would surprise the girl more and could win her heart. At first, Adriana could not distinguish the behavior of the guys from each other. They both courted her almost in the same way. Even the manner of communication was similar. But with time, the differences between them did come to light. Michael was a bit arrogant. He admired Adriana, but he did not forget to show off to other women. Adriana always liked the way the girls looked back at him. She was proud of herself and the fact that he paid the main attention to her. Benjamin only had eyes for her. Michael was very persistent. Adriana noticed that if things didn't work out the way he wanted, he was angry and ready to tear the guilty parties to pieces. Benjamin was more reserved and wise in such matters, and Benjamin thought several times before taking any important step. Adriana liked his caution. She herself was used to taking important matters seriously. Adriana knew that they both liked her so much that each of them was ready to marry her. But she wasn't the one who made the choice. It just so happened that Michael was the first to propose to her. It was a month after her father died. Adriana doubted that enough time had passed since the funeral to play the wedding. But Michael was persuasive. "Look, you've got a big business on your hands. You need someone to help you run it. I think now is the time for us to join our fates. I'll be helping myself, and you'll have peace of mind. And your father would be happy to have you in his care." And Adriana gave in. The only thing that puzzled her was Benjamin's reaction. When Adriana and Michael told him that they were getting married, the guy reacted very strangely. He got excited, hugged them, congratulated them, made some jokes. But Adriana noticed the look in his eyes. Benjamin was like a wounded beast, struggling to hold on in the last battle to defend his honor. Benjamin, it only took one look at Adriana to make her question the rightness of her decision. But he didn't say a word about how he thought their move was wrong. He didn't say that he wanted to marry Adriana himself. He didn't fight it, and Adriana decided that he didn't need her as much as he needed Michael. Michael and Adriana got married. It was a modest wedding. It was Adriana's wish. She didn't want to throw a fancy party, even though Michael really wanted to. They just got married. Only Michael's best friend was with them. Benjamin and Adriana were friends. And one more condition was agreed upon even before the signing. Adriana provided Michael with a prenuptial agreement that was drawn up at the request of the girl's father. It was obvious that Michael did not like it at all, but he agreed to all the terms of the contract. I don't understand what this is for. I love you very much and would never do anything wrong. I only want to take care of you, Adriana. I don't care about your wealth, your money, your businesses. I only want you. It's like you suspect me of being mercenary. That's why I made this prenup, Michael said, a little irritated. I love you too. And I don't suspect you of mercantilism. I'm honoring my father's request. I promised him before I died that I would get married with a prenuptial agreement. And I'm just honoring my promise. That's all. Michael, if you love me, you will have no problem fulfilling my request and Dad's, Adriana replied. And the prenup was signed. Adriana and Michael were now legally married. They didn't even have a honeymoon. Michael went straight to work. He began to get involved in the firm, and Adriana breathed a sigh of relief. She didn't have to worry about her future. Her father made sure that she would not need anything, and Michael would make sure that her father's business would continue to live, develop, and be successful. Adriana drove to the cemetery, placed flowers on the mound strewn with flowers, and reported back, Dad, everything will be okay now. Don't worry about me, I'm in good hands. I've done everything you asked me to do. I've kept all my promises. And you sleep well. I love you. Adriana went about her womanly business while Michael took care of the firm's business. The girl just signed the documents her husband gave her. She did not get involved in the affairs of the firm at all, shifting all responsibility to her husband. And I was thinking, I'm just sorry. I'm going to pull away now. Adriana apologized, smiling affably. But the man didn't smile back, only said irritably, she thought. And who put you behind the wheel? First, they buy a license, and then drive as if they were the only ones on the roads, chicken. The man left, and Adriana drove a little farther away. The man pulled into the yard and signaled again. She wasn't paying attention to him anymore. Adriana took out her cell phone again and called her husband. The caller was unavailable. But where is he? Adriana called Benjamin. Maybe he knew where the husband was? Benjamin answered immediately, but Adriana had no answer for him. Adriana, I don't know where he is. I can't reach Betty myself. She said she's going to the mall, and that's it. It's been ringing off the hook for 2 hours, for Christ's sake. Oh, shit. She probably forgot to charge her phone again. She does that a lot. How are you doing, Adriana? You sound a little sad. You're fine. Is there anything I can do to help? Benjamin asked. Adriana was silent, not knowing what to say. She didn't want to burden her friend, especially since he had enough problems of his own. Benjamin had gotten married a year ago, but he wasn't as well off as Adriana and Michael. He wasn't living well. He was trying to get his business going. That's when he met Betty. The girl quickly married the promisingly handsome man. But things didn't work out with the business. Everything went bust, and Benjamin was left with nothing. Good, at least he didn't make debts, but he had to sell his cool new foreign car. His wife was very angry about this development. She got married thinking about a well-fed and secure future. But what kind of future with a man who lost all his money? So she nagged him all the time. That's why the anger comes out a lot. The four of them used to meet a lot. They were friends at home, so to speak. They had fun spending time together. But after Benjamin started having problems, they became uncomfortable with each other. Betty often humiliated her husband in public. Benjamin held firm and didn't take it out on his wife, and she took advantage of it. Adriana could see the pain in Benjamin's eyes when his wife's barbs and taunts were hurled at him. She felt sorry for him, but she couldn't help it. One day she told him when they were alone for a moment, "Benjamin, let me help you. You know it's not hard for me. I have enough money to help you without you even noticing it. I want to help you." This conversation took place during their regular family meeting. Betty had once again humiliated her husband a few minutes earlier by throwing some kind of insult at him. Michael laughed. Benjamin only clenched his fists in anger and resentment. Only Adriana noticed this in the kitchen. She approached the guy with this suggestion, but Benjamin only smiled. "Sadly, Adriana, you know me. I won't accept help from anyone, especially from you. I can handle it. Don't worry, it's all temporary." "But why don't you want to accept help from me?" asked Adriana. And then Benjamin looked intently into her eyes and wanted to say something, but he didn't say a word. He only squeezed her hand so tightly that Adriana's heart beat faster. Then he said softly, "I'm very fond of you. I value our friendship very much. Know that, and I'll always help you. But I won't take help from you. I can do it myself. I'm not in such a terrible situation that I need help from outsiders." "But I'm not a stranger," Adriana said with her eyes down. "You're not a stranger, but I don't want money to come between us." Benjamin wanted to say something else, but Betty and the boy wolfed into the kitchen. Did Adriana remember that conversation? She knew that if she asked Benjamin for anything, he'd go to pieces and fulfill her request in any way he could. That's why she didn't want to mess with his head over little things. "It's okay, Benjamin. I'm just worried I can't get through." "Adriana, don't worry. I'm sure everything's fine, especially since he called me today. Said he's inviting us over to your house tonight. Didn't you know that? Strange, but I'll see you tonight. Adriana, see you later." Adriana disconnected the phone. It was really strange that they hadn't told her anything about the party. Adriana started the engine and drove home. To her surprise, Michael was already home. "Where have you been? Why was your phone off?" "I couldn't reach you," the girl said indignantly. But Michael was calm. He only smiled and said, "What's wrong? My sweet life has lost its successful mind?" "Jenka, why did you need me, my sweetie? You're so out of key, my bun. I'm scared of you. Scared shitless." Adriana was infuriated by her husband's mounting. She irritably threw his hands off her shoulders and said, "Stop it. I'm seriously talking to you, and you appear like a monkey." As soon as Michael heard the comparison with a monkey, his cheerful mood immediately disappeared. He removed his hands without a smile. "What kind of manner, Adriana? What do you think you're doing, huh? What monkey? You can't even make a joke anymore. You see, you're strange. I don't know why my phone was off for so long. Maybe it was an important meeting, or it was just dead." "What's the difference? Everything's fine, right? I'm home now. What's there to think about? And to notify me that guests are coming is no big deal either." Michael frowned. "What guests?" "But Benjamin and Betty, why didn't you tell me that they were coming?" "I would have called the housekeeper to sneak in, and I would have called the cook. Now it's too late to call anyone." Michael smiled again. "Oh, they're just guests. They're just friends. Why show off for them? They don't have 1/100th of what we have. I don't think we have to worry about them coming to us. They think everything here is fancy. I ordered takeout from the restaurant. I'm going to take a shower, or they'll be here soon." They hadn't seen each other for a long time, but the conversation at the table wasn't going well. They listened to music, talked about distracting topics. What was strange was that Betty didn't mock her husband that time. It was as if she didn't notice him at all. And Adriana noticed that Benjamin often looked at her. He did it when Adriana wasn't looking at him, but she could feel his eyes on her. As soon as Adriana started looking at him, he would immediately lower his eyes. There was a kind of tension in the air, and Adriana didn't understand what it was. When Betty and Benjamin finally left, Adriana breathed a little more freely and said to her husband, "Did you notice anything strange?" "Hey, no." He raised his eyebrows in surprise. "What should I have noticed? I don't know what you're talking about." Making up nonsense again, Adriana frowned and said thoughtfully, "No, I'm not making it up." "Haven't you noticed that Betty and Benjamin have been acting strange, as if they were hiding something from us?" "And Betty was so nice to everyone today. She's usually different." "I thought it was very strange. And Benjamin didn't talk much. Usually he talks to you all the time. It doesn't make sense. Maybe they're in trouble." "You don't know anything I need to know?" Michael sighed and rolled his eyes. Adriana could see that he was getting nervous. But she didn't understand what. "You're always imagining things, Adriana, when in fact there's nothing. They were acting pretty normal. Except we didn't talk as much as usual." "What's wrong with that?" "First of all, we haven't seen each other for a long time. And secondly, it's evening. Everyone's tired after a day's work. You are the one who's not working, and I'm doing the work for both of us. Benjamin must have a lot of work to do too." Tired. That's why he's been quiet. Betty's just calmed down. Probably just stopped nagging Lek. "So things are better between them?" "No, it didn't seem that way to me. I don't think they were getting along. They weren't even looking at each other." "It's weird, Michael. And you're not going to convince me otherwise. Something's not right here." Michael wanted to say something, but changed his mind. He hummed irritably and went to his office. Adriana was alone in the bedroom. She stared out of the window and thought that strange things were happening around her. It seemed to her that she was missing something important. Only she couldn't figure out what it was. Why did she feel so uneasy? She couldn't find answers to her questions, and it scared her and worried her for the next week. Everything was normal. Adriana was busy with her business. This weekend, she had to go away for 2 days. She had been invited by a friend for her birthday. They were going to celebrate at a recreation center. Of course, that expensive complex and recreation center could not be called a recreation center. It was a very prestigious place of rest, where only very wealthy people could afford to come. But Irene married a rich man. He catered to her every whim. They rented the whole complex for 2 weekends. This luxurious treat cost a lot of money, but Irene's husband didn't skimp. Irene invited her and Michael to come along, but her husband refused to go out of the blue. "I have a lot of work on the weekend. I can't afford a vacation. You go. Someone can take you so you don't have to drive yourself." "That's fine. I won't even have to worry about you. And I'll work. I've got some meetings scheduled for Saturday and Sunday. I've got a couple of important meetings on the new contract. You see, I'm trying for us. What could be more important than our success?" Adriana was a little upset, but then she thought that a few days apart would do them good. She would calm down a bit, as there had been too many anxious thoughts going through her head lately. She needed to rest and get rid of all the negativity. All week, Adriana went to the salons and stores. On Friday, she was completely ready to leave. Her friends came and picked her up. Her husband walked her to the car. "Michael, it's such a shame you're not going. Maybe you'll drop what you're doing?" Adriana asked, hugging her husband. But Michael answered her firmly, "No, dear, that's out of the question. I'm sorry I'm not going with you too." We'd have a lot of fun, but you'll have to do it for both of us. Call me when you get home. I'll really miss you." And he kissed Adriana on the cheek. The weekend went by in one breath. Adriana actually had more fun. Her mood had lifted. She convinced herself that all the disturbing thoughts were just a figment of her wild imagination. How could she suspect her husband of infidelity when he loves her so much? After all, he does so much for her, works so hard. He even gave up his vacations just to oversee the firm's affairs. Isn't that proof of his love? Of course it was. And Adriana should just keep herself busy too, so that such foolish thoughts wouldn't enter her head anymore. Yes, she should help her husband to have more free time. Adriana was going to tell him that when she arrived. She arrived on Monday morning. Michael was no longer at home despite the very early hour. She called her husband, but Michael only briefly said, "With arrival, we will talk later. I'm very busy, I'll call you myself." And she had so hoped to talk to her husband about her decision in the morning. She wanted to discuss their relationship, which had become strained lately. There had been no intimacy between them for months. This problem also bothered her a lot. Adriana realized that Michael was working too much and was tired. She imagined how happy he would have been that she wanted to be closely involved in the firm's affairs. She even thought that they would go to the farm together, and Michael would start to bring her up to speed. She would help him, and he would be less tired, and all would be well between them again. But her hopes were not realized. Her husband was not at home. However, Adriana immediately made the negative thoughts disappear from her mind. She had to think only of the good things. She shrugged her shoulders and smiled to herself. So they would talk, and she would give her husband a romantic dinner tonight. For now, she needed to take care of herself. After such an active vacation, she needed to tidy up and get some sleep. Adriana turned on the water to draw herself a bath, reached into her locker to pull out a new box of target barrels. Opening the box, she froze. The box was open, but Adriana hadn't used these bombshells yet. However, there was one balloon missing from the box.
She definitely hadn't taken it. Adriana looked at herself in the mirror. Amazement was written all over her face. Had Michael really taken a bath? But he never used her things, never took anything that was in that locker. He didn't even draw himself a bath. He preferred to bathe under the shower. He could only take a bath with Adriana. It happened sometimes, but Adriana wasn't home. Mikhail decided to draw his own bath and threw a salt bomb into the waiter. Unlikely unless Adriana turned pale. Unless he took a bath with someone other than himself. So was there a woman in the house? God, let it be just her fantasy. But Adriana realized it was not in vain. She had long suspected her husband of infidelity. Her intuition told her that this was a very important moment, and she must not miss something significant. She needed to be more careful. Adriana put the bomb box back in its place and looked at the contents of the drawer. It was impossible to see if anyone had used her makeup. She had a lot of everything. Now this was interesting. Here. Toothbrushes. The toothbrush case had been sealed before, but now it was open, and there was one toothbrush missing. Maybe Michael had gotten himself a new one? Adriana took her husband's brush and examined it closely. No, the old brush was not for him. Adriana felt her heart beating faster. She closed the drawer and looked at herself in the mirror. Her face was pale, but determined. Well, maybe there was something else she was overlooking. So Adriana started walking around the house, paying attention to all sorts of little things. She opened the dishwasher, and there were 4 plates, 4 mugs, and 2 glasses. There would be nothing suspicious if those glasses were in their place in the cupboard, in a box. But the glasses were in the dishwasher, which means they'd been used. So Michael was drinking and eating with someone.
Adriana headed for the bedroom. The bed was made. She threw back the blanket. When she'd left, the linens were white, but here they were dark blue, with gold ornaments. Adriana headed for the laundry room. She opened the closet where the dirty laundry basket was kept. In it, she found white linens. Adriana stared at it for about a minute, and then picked it up and held it up to her face. Sucked in a breath of air. The linen smelled like a woman's perfume, but it wasn't her perfume. It was some kind of sweet, even cloying scent. Adriana didn't use that kind. She parted the sheet on the floor and examined it carefully, not knowing what she was looking for. But her intuition didn't fail her. She found something that confirmed her hunch. It was a bright red-colored stain. It was a lipstick stain. There could be no doubt about it. While Adriana was gone, there was another woman in the house, and she was taking a bath in a salt bomb tub and drinking something with her husband from expensive glasses. And she slept with her husband on their bed, on her snow-white linens. And she had left her lipstick mark on it. Apparently, a stormy night was developing in her house, and Adriana had been away the whole time. Adriana angrily about the sheet and threw it in the hamper, slammed the closet door shut. A loud bang made her wince. Her nerves were on edge. Adriana headed for the bedroom again. She stood in the middle of the room, looking at the bed, and thought, God, her husband was cheating on her on their bed, a bed she herself had personally picked out in a catalog and had custom made for them, taking into account certain details. Adriana clenched and widened her fists. So her intuition hadn't failed her after all? Michael had really betrayed her here. Adriana looked at the floor beside the bed, and something caught her eye. She bent down and saw that there was something shiny on the floor. She picked up her find. It was a gold earring. It was the jewelry of Michael's mistress.
She didn't have earrings like that. Adriana looked at it carefully. The clasp was not holding tightly, so she undid it. In a fit of passion, the woman who had slept with her husband hadn't felt it and hadn't even noticed it was missing. Adriana hid Sebioska in her nightstand. Oh yeah, that's despicable. Bringing his mistress into his house, how could he? Adriana did everything for him. She gave him complete freedom of action. She trusted him, she loved him, and he betrayed her. He just shit on her soul. What's she gonna do now? How would she tell him she knew everything, how to do it, and who was this woman? Adriana wanted to know who he was cheating on her with. She didn't think it was a prostitute. Solid gold earrings. Woman of easy virtue wouldn't wear when they came to see clients. God, what a nightmare. Could she have imagined that she would have to endure such a terrible disappointment? No, never in her life. Adriana tried to come to her senses.
She didn't bother to prepare a bath, just took a shower, standing under the jets of water with her eyes closed. She tried to push away thoughts of what might have been going on in this house while she was gone. It disgusted her to think that every room in the house could have been a haven for her husband and his girlfriend's love games. They could do their treacherous business even in the shower. The bitch could even use her towel. What a horror. It was unbearable. Adriana turned off the water and jumped out of the shower stall, grabbed a clean towel from the closet, and went to the bedroom. Calm. Just calm, she whispered. She needed to figure out what to do next. Of course, she wanted to rush to the farm to lay all the facts before her. Accuse him of cheating, make a scandal, demand that he apologize to her on his knees, and find out who the woman was. Who had the nerve to show up at their house, use Adriana's things, asleep on her bed, and more. God. Gross. But Michael could deny it. He could blame it on the housekeeper. He could say she slept over because Michael was busy late and slept in the study. He could say or make up anything. Okay, if he admits his guilt, what then can he apologize, ask for forgiveness? Forgive him. And then, how can you trust him? Yes, Adriana would now forever suspect him. And, after all, she would want to know who the woman who was in their house was.
Okay, that's understandable. But what if Michael really was cheating on her? And he has some kind of explanation? What if it wasn't him, but a friend of his, for example? Then Adriana will make herself look like a suspicious Lane who is examining the dirty bedding and picking through the trash can.
Nightmare. That option frightened her as much as the others. Adriana poured herself a glass of martini, took a couple of sips. To calm down, she had to think hard about the whole situation. After a few minutes, she calmed down and made a decision.
She would wait until her husband came home, look at his behavior, try to find out some details about how he had spent the weekend. Maybe he would give himself away in some way, so she would do that. Adriana lay down, but she couldn't sleep. All day, she'd been hanging around the house, trying not to get herself worked up, but she wasn't very good at it. Michael came home in the evening. He was in a wonderful mood, kissed Adriana, started to undress. How was your weekend? I had a good time and probably threw a huge party. Yeah, it was fun. Everyone enjoyed it. Me too. You had a great weekend. You got all your stuff done. I hope you got some rest. She tried to ask without being too forward, so it wouldn't look suspicious. Yeah, I did, thank God. You know, I even had to call a helper over to my house on Saturday. We were doing paperwork at Hopelprau. Good thing I knew to open a bottle of wine. It made things go faster. And Michael laughed. Adriana breathed a sigh of relief, so her took. He had his assistant with him. And it was because of him. Michael took out the glasses. But then she remembered the clasp. Well, how do you explain that? He came alone. He didn't bring his secretary. I think it would have gone faster with her, she said as detachedly as possible. No, why bother her at night? We've done well enough on our own. Well, I'll go to the study and you get some rest. Michael? What? He poked her in the forehead and left the bedroom. Adriana remained sitting on the bed. She frowned. No, something's not right here, the assistant. A night out with him and an earring is evidence. We'll have to find out another way. She can't get anything from her husband. She has to provoke him somehow, bring the mistress home again, if there was one. And Adriana has figured out how to do it. She has to go away again for the weekend, but she has to do it fictitiously. I mean, say she's going away, but stay home. Adriana had been watching her husband all week, but there was nothing suspicious. He behaved normally, but there was no intimacy between them. Although Adriana had hinted at it several times, Michael only cited fatigue and workload, and nothing happened. He didn't look tired at all. On the contrary, he was energetic and in a good mood. It all looked suspicious. Adriana waited until Friday. In the middle of the day, she called Michael, dear, I have to leave on my own business. I'm packing my suitcase right now. I've booked a plane ticket. I'll arrive on Sunday. Michael wished her good luck without even asking her what she was doing. His voice was very happy. Adriana packed her suitcase and hid it in her dressing room. She left a few things in the bedroom to make it obvious she was packing and threw a wet towel on the bed. Peeked under the bed, then crawled under it. Great. There was plenty of room. All she could do was hope it would come out the way she had planned. Adriana put her phone on silent and sat by the window so she wouldn't miss her husband's car. She hoped he wasn't coming home alone. Then she would know the identity of the woman who was her husband's mistress. If he brought her, Adriana would crawl out from under the bed and drag her by the hair. Adriana sat by the window at about 3 hours. She was beginning to think that her whole plan was foolishness. What if her husband came home alone? What was she hoping for by carrying out this plan, huh? Would she lie under the bed all night, or would she come out with words of surprise? She realized that her plan was just stupid, and she looked stupid, and her whole life was kind of stupid. After all she was busy doing was suspecting her husband.
of something. Adriana was just about to call Michael to tell him the trip was canceled when she saw his car. Michael arrived home. Through the bars, Adriana saw that he had not arrived alone. There was someone sitting next to him. The tinted windows made it impossible to see the identity of the military companion or companions. And Adriana, I had to get them into the house. She ran to the bedroom in time to hide under the bed. Already under the bed, she checked once again that her phone was in voice mode. It was not enough to let herself be discovered in such a stupid way as Viagra, a ringtone or a melody that would play at the most inopportune moment. She lay under the bed, feeling foolish. Her heart was beating like it was ready to jump out of her chest. Adriana felt as if the pounding of her heart could be heard throughout the house. She closed her eyes and tried to calm down. Everything would be okay. She would go unnoticed. A few minutes later, her husband's voice was heard. He was talking to someone. After another minute, Adriana heard a woman's laughter. Yes, he had come with a woman. Well, her plan wasn't so bad at all. She had gotten her way. All she had to do was wait until they got to the bedroom. And then Adriana would give them a concert that would be a big deal. The voices were getting closer. Adriana waited with bated breath for the right moment. Her heart pounded quietly. Adriana felt that she was almost there. She immediately calmed down. And then she heard a woman's voice right in the bedroom. But the pig had left, of course. You have a housekeeper. You don't have to put things back at all. The maid will come and put everything away. I'm the one who cleans everything myself, although I'm already like that. And I'm the one who pours. And actually, if I had a house like this, I would have a housekeeper living here all the time to go and clean with me all the time. The woman's voice sounded familiar to Adriana, so familiar that she stopped breathing for a moment. Who could it be? Someone from the firm or someone she knew? Oh, come on, you're nagging, not paying attention to things. She doesn't usually scatter. She likes order. She must have been in a hurry. It's an important trip. But what kind of important things could she be doing? Going to someone's birthday party, I guess. Michael laughed. The woman laughed too. And then Adriana was hit over the head with a sledgehammer. She recognized that voice. It was Betty Benjamin, the wife. How? How is that possible? It can't be. She's his best friend's wife. How could he do this to them? How could he betray not only his wife, but also his best friend? Adriana wanted to immediately jump out from under the bed to raise a scandal, to expose them for lying, to find out why they did this. But immediately she had another plan. No, she wasn't supposed to expose herself. She must listen to what they would talk about. Maybe that wasn't all she needed to find out. Adriana closed her eyes and rested her forehead against the floor. She was in a terrible situation. Fate had given her an unpleasant surprise in the form of her husband's infidelity. But even more unpleasant for Adriana was the fact that her husband was cheating on her with this Betty. Michael, I know you're dealing with this issue, but I'm going to ask you again, are you going to wrap this up when? What are you going to do with Adriana? You already have a plan. Or how long do I have to wait? Betty asked with a demanding look in her voice. Michael could be heard kissing her, and then he said, "My beauty, but I've told you so many times not to worry. I'm going to do everything right." Betty poked her tongue and grudgingly replied, "All your promises are nice and pleasant, of course, but I need facts, Michael, facts. What exactly are you doing to get rid of her? I've waited so long. I'm not satisfied with these miserable sleepovers. I want to live here, you know? I want to be a hostess here, not a guest when my wife's away. Betty, my love. But we meet a lot at the hotel. Isn't that enough for you? For now. I can't just kick her out of the house. It's still her house, you know? So make it yours. I know you can organize that. That wiretap trusts you with all its business. Can't you get rid of it quickly?" "Betty," Michael said angrily. I'm doing my best to do that. Take my word for it. And don't tell me off like a boy. I don't like it. I've never lied to you. And if I said it'll be done soon, it will be done. All you have to do is wait and not nag me. Every time we see each other. It was clear that Michael was angry, and Betty immediately began to apologize. Well, Michael, but sweetheart, I'm not mad at you. It's not just us I'm worried about. You know, you realize that I have to think about the baby as well as myself. You don't want me to lose him, do you? You don't want me to be nervous with all this worrying, do you? I'm getting cramps in my stomach, and I'm scared I'm gonna miscarry. I can't survive that. I want to have a baby with you so badly. You know that. I love you so much, sweetie. Your sweetie loves you so much. Your sweetie loves. That's why I want to live here with you and be with you all the time. I want our baby to be born into a complete family. And that's only possible if you go get rid of Adriana. If nothing changes, what will happen to our child? Tell me, he'll grow up fatherless, and he'll be called a freak. Michael, understand me, I'm just looking out for our child. Tell your bun that you're not offended by me, but tell your sweetheart. Tell your bun that you don't take offense. Adriana was trembling. Her whole body was covered in goosebumps. What on earth is going on? That thing is pregnant. Just whose baby is it? It was clearly Benjamin's baby. Adriana was sure it wasn't her husband's baby. So Betty was trying to convince her it was his. What a bastard. She was just manipulating him. And Michael's such a bastard, sleeping with that bitch, cheating on Benjamin and Adriana, and planning something evil. What do you mean he wanted to get rid of her? Get rid of her how? He couldn't kill her. And how could he kick his wife out of her own house? What's going on when Michael could change like that? Or has he always been like this? Only Adriana didn't see it. It's horrible. How could she be in such a terrible situation? She had married a monster. Adriana began to fear for her life. These two were discussing her as if she was some kind of disgusting insect that had to be gotten rid of. Are you sure I'm the father of the child? Michael asked. Betty, again in her own voice, began to wail. Well, of course, darling. Are you doubting me, this Adriana of yours? She's not clear and she doesn't want to have a baby with you. And I love you so much I don't have to ask for it. She's not mine, she's not visual. But she doesn't want to have a baby. That's true. We even examined her once, but Adriana didn't want to go any further. That was the end of it. Adriana didn't want to go. I almost choked. What the hell is going on? Why is Michael saying these things? She's the one who dragged him to the doctor. He's never been interested in having kids. His career always came first. More than that. Adriana couldn't listen to these two cheaters, and she knew what had to be done next, while these two were stealing about something of their own. Adriana unlocked her phone that she had been holding in her hand the whole time. After thinking for a few seconds, she quickly texted a message to her husband and then sent it to Michael. Moments later, my husband's cell phone rang. What's so important? Betty asked when she saw that Michael was frowning. Important, very important. It's canceled. You're not sleeping here tonight. Why is that? What's the matter? Adriana's not on a plane. She's on her way home. She'll be home in an hour. So hurry up. Come on, don't forget your stuff. You still haven't found my earring? Betty asked. No, it's not here. Then you didn't lose it. Here? If Adriana had found it, she'd have given me a scandal by now. If she's not talking, she hasn't found Sergei. You dropped it somewhere else. They left. The car door slammed and the car drove off. Adriana lay under the bed for a few more minutes, then climbed out, sat on the bed, and thought. Now she had her life to worry about. There was no telling what these two were up to, but clearly nothing good. The wording to get rid of sounded very ominous. There were a lot of possibilities. Adriana didn't even want to think about which one was the worst. She was covered in Murashko again. What was she going to do now? She had no one but her husband. She thought she was protected. But it turned out she was in even more danger being with him. How could she find a way out of such a situation, and who could give her sound advice? No one. No father. No relatives. You can't go to your friends with a request like that. No one would believe her. Or they'd think she was crazy. Daddy, how much do I miss you? You wanted what was best for me, didn't you? And now I feel so defenseless and alone. What am I gonna do, Daddy? Help me, please, Adriana whispered, folding her hands in front of her in a pleading gesture. And then she heard a sharp sound. She was startled, thinking it was Michael returning. But it was quiet. There was no more sound. And Adriana walked slowly out into the hall. She immediately realized the reason for the sound. There was a framed picture hanging on the wall, but now it was lying on the floor. Apparently, Mommy had knocked it off the wall. Adriana picked up the frame. It was a picture of her father with a friend. His best friend, Ethan. He was always helping her daddy, and her daddy would do anything for him. Adriana loved Ethan, as she called him. Even though he was a very respected man in town and very wealthy, he treated Adriana like a daughter. He himself had no children. Ethan was admired by all women. Any woman would give up everything for him. But he only loved his first wife. After she died in an accident, he never remarried. And then it hit Adriana? Well, of course, Ethan, that's who I needed. Thank you, Daddy, you're helping me. And from there, Adriana kissed the framed photo and hung it on the wall again. Of course, Ethan would help her. In the last years before Adriana died, Daddy and Ethan rarely got together at the same table. But they always congratulated each other on all the holidays, and everyone knew they would always help each other if needed. A few days before he died, Daddy told her daughter, "If anything happens to me, I won't be able to protect you anymore. If you need it, you know there's a man who will do it in my place. If you need help, go to Ethan. He won't say no. He promised me, and you promise me, that you will turn to him well." Adriana had promised then not to focus too much on Daddy's words. She even kept a piece of paper with the phone number. Adriana rushed to her desk. Where is that piece of paper? Had she thrown it away? 5 minutes later, her search was successful. There it was. Adriana dialed the number with shaking hands and pressed the call button. Let him just pick it up, please. After a while, she heard a familiar voice. Yes, who is Ethan speaking? It's me, Adriana. There was a pause. Then a voice said, You must have the wrong number. Adriana, quickly, before it disconnects. Ethan, this is Adriana. You remember me? Dad gave me your phone number. Before he died, he said I could call you if I needed help. Adriana. Adriana, is that you? God, it's so good to hear from you. I'm so glad you called. You're in some kind of trouble. Do you need help? Speak quickly. And then Adriana cried. She felt like the little defenseless girl that Daddy had always protected and cared for. It was only at that moment that she realized that with his death she had lost everything. She got married, but she didn't feel safe. All this time, her husband had not given her the sense of protection that her father had provided. When she heard the voice of her dad's best friend, she realized how truly alone she was in the world. Adriana. What happened? Where are you? They're sending a car for you. Don't be quiet. Why are you crying? Ethan, I need your help. But this isn't a phone call. I need to see you. I'll tell you everything. I'm sorry, I have no one else to turn to. I don't trust anyone and I don't know what to do. So I'll send a car for you right now. Dictates an address. I got it all written down. Don't worry, I'll be right here. Don't cry, my dear. My heart is bleeding. I'll see you soon. I'm waiting for you. Adriana disconnected the phone. She felt a little better. Ethan's kind and caring voice gave her confidence that everything would be all right. He would help her. She was no longer alone. An hour later, she was already at Ethan's house. The driver politely addressed him by his first name and middle name. When Ethan called him, "Young lady, everything is fine in my car. We'll be there soon." "Yeah, I'm on it. Don't worry." When Adriana saw Ethan, she started crying again. He held out his arms to her, as if he had waited a long time to meet her. "Adriana, my dear, I haven't seen you in so long. You've become so beautiful. But why are you, my beauty, so unhappy?" "What's the matter, my dear? What misfortune has befallen you? Tell me. I'll try to help you." Adriana hugged him, closing her eyes. She even remembered the smell of his cologne. All his life, Ethan had used one fragrance, the one his dead wife had liked. "Ethan, I'm in such a strange and terrible situation. It's about my husband. I don't even know where to begin." Ethan drew her into his office. In the office sat his assistant. She quickly got up from her chair when they appeared in the doorway. "Are we done for the day, Ethan?" He nodded. "Yes, you can go home, but please be a dear and bring us some coffee and candy." The girl nodded and quickly left the office. Ethan sat Adriana in a comfortable chair and sat down on the sofa opposite her. "Well, tell me. Just pull yourself together. I'm right here with you. You're in no danger." And Adriana began to tell. After 5 minutes, the girl came in, put a tray with cups of coffee and candy on the coffee table, and then silently left, closing the door tightly behind her. Adriana continued her story. She didn't elaborate on any of the details. When she began to talk about more recent events, her skin was covered with goosebumps again. When she talked about how her husband had assured his mistress that he would soon get rid of the part, tears came to her eyes again. She finished her story, took a deep breath, and looked Ethan in the eye. The man was very serious. He crossed his arms over his chest and frowned. The look in his eyes told her that a plan was brewing in his head, but he was in no hurry to announce it. After a while, he sighed heavily. "Your fiancé is a real piece of work. I haven't seen him yet, but I already have an idea of what he's like. I've seen enough of them in my life to know the difference between them and decent people. Your husband has settled down well, I should say, with a wife like you, who allows him everything in the world. He'd only go far if he treated people like a human being and loved his wife. And this rotten bastard wants to hurt you. I get it, Adriana, and I want to say that you intrigue me too. It's been a long time since I've been in a fight like this. You know, over the years, I've managed to surround myself with people who deserve my trust. But that wasn't always the case. It took me a long time to appreciate people who were hypocritical and greedy deceivers. Now I am confident that I have nothing to fear. But before, I had to keep an eye on everyone. I'll help you. I'll find out what your husband is doing, what he's up to. Don't worry, you'll be well looked after." Adriana smiled timidly. "Really, Ethan, you will help me. You'll protect me." Ethan grinned. "Of course, my dear. How could it be otherwise? You're like a daughter to me. Don't worry, you'll be all right. I won't hurt you. I'll provide you with bodyguards who will accompany you around the clock. Nothing will happen to you. And in no time, I'll know all about your husband. Now go home, get some rest. I don't think your husband's gonna do anything today. And when he does, I'll know everything." Adriana said goodbye to Ethan, hugged him tightly, and went home. Michael wasn't home yet. Apparently, he and Betty had gone to the hotel. Adriana decided that she would still need to meet Benjamin and tell him everything. He deserved to know the truth, too. She texted him asking to meet. He immediately replied to her, asking about the location. After some thought, Adriana texted him that they should meet at the park where they liked to walk when they were dating. Benjamin agreed. Adriana smiled as she remembered their walks. What a wonderful time it had been. No worries, no troubles. All the people seemed kind and helpful. The thought flashed through Adriana's mind that she was sorry that Benjamin had proposed to her first. Then she wouldn't be in this situation. Somehow she was sure that Benjamin would have treated her completely differently, not like Michael. Why did she marry him then? Was it just because he was the first to propose? Or was there another reason? Maybe she loved Benjamin and was afraid of those feelings or something else? Adriana didn't know the answers to all the questions. And an hour later, she was already in the park. Benjamin wasn't there yet. Adriana arrived early, but she couldn't be at home that day. It was too hard to accept the fact that her home, her fortress, was a love nest for Michael and Betty. Soon Benjamin came over. Hello, what's up? What's the emergency? We couldn't talk on the phone. You're scaring me. What's your secret? Adriana hugged Benjamin, kissed him. Then they sat on a bench because I can't be sure of anything. I learned something today that still makes the hair on my head stand on end. Benjamin frowned. Why did you have to talk to me? I don't understand anything. Adriana looked into Benjamin's eyes and saw in them not only concern, but something that frightened her a little. There was passion there. She immediately lowered her gaze and said, because it's not just about me, it's about you. Benjamin was silent. Adriana did not break the silence either. It lengthened, and Adriana looked at the boy. Benjamin watched the couple on the bench in the distance. The girl looked into her lover's eyes, and he kissed her on the lips, nose, and cheeks. It looked so touching that it took Adriana's heart. It had been so long since she had felt this way. She insinuated to herself that she was happy, but in reality, she was missing something. Michael had been a good husband up to a point, but not what she had dreamed of. She lacked the warmth and attention and genuine care that her father had given her. Michael cared for her, but his care only manifested itself in the fact that he took over the firm entirely. He kept telling Adriana that he only wanted what was good for her, and for that he needed to take care of her business to increase her wealth. But now Adriana wasn't sure Michael was being sincere with her. So what did you find out? Breaking the silence and realizing that his interlocutor would not start the conversation herself. Benjamin asked. Adriana stirred and squirmed. She woke up from the touching memories, put her hands between her knees and said, Michael, I am cheating on him. That's how sorry I am that he disappointed you. I'm really sorry. Adriana looked at him. That's not all. He's cheating on me with your wife. Well, I don't know what to say to that. You're sure of it? His calm voice surprised Adriana. He wondered why he reacted so calmly. Benjamin, I saw them together at our house. I caught them in the act. There can be no doubt. I suspected, that's why I hid under the bed. But I said I left and he brought her home. Benjamin, I'm just shocked. Benjamin sighed, rubbing his face with his hands as he looked at Adriana again. It seemed to her that he had aged a few years. I suspected Betty was deceiving me, but there was no proof. Well, I can't say I'm shocked, but the news is not good. Of course, my best friend is my wife, Benjamin. Betty is pregnant. Well, that's a shock to me. I don't know what to say. I guess I should congratulate my best friend. What do you think? Benjamin grinned bitterly. Adriana took Benjamin's hand. This baby is not Michael's, it's yours, and I don't know why. Betty claims that this baby is his, but I guess she claims that because it really is Michael's. Adriana shook her head. No, it's definitely not his. I haven't told anyone, but Michael can't have children, that's true. Adriana and Michael had been trying to conceive for a long time. Michael didn't care, but Adriana really wanted to have children. When they didn't succeed for a long time, she got nervous. At Adriana's insistence, they both underwent examinations from start to finish. They took all the possible tests, underwent all the necessary tests. When they had to go to get the results, Michael was away on a business trip. Adriana went to the clinic alone. She took the results. They were not very comforting. Adriana's health was fine, but Michael was having problems. There were a lot of terms she didn't even know about. Explained to her that Michael could never be a father. Adriana was in total shock. She could never get her husband pregnant, and there was nothing she could do to change that. If they wanted to have children, there was only one way out. But for Adriana, that was unacceptable. It was Michael she wanted to have a child with. When Michael arrived from his business trip, he didn't even ask his wife anything. He simply forgot that they were supposed to get the test results. And Adriana could not tell him that Michael was infertile. She did not talk to him about children again, and Michael did not bring up the subject either. This secret Adriana had been carrying around and only now told her best friend. Now Benjamin knew the truth. Now they both knew that the baby Betty was carrying was not Michael's. Benjamin listened to Adriana in silence. When she fell silent, he pushed Benjamin. You do realize that this is your baby. Why are you so calm? You have to do something. You can't. Leave it like this, Adriana said worriedly, looking at her almost calm friend. But, to her surprise, Benjamin was still indifferent. He took Adriana's hand on the wall. I understand that you are in shock, but that's not all. I'm about to say something that will add even more drama to this whole situation. I know for a fact that I am not the father of this baby either. I don't understand. You can't have kids either? For the first time since they had been sitting in the park, Benjamin laughed heartily. And Adriana saw again that gambling and fun-loving guy who had once courted and wooed her. No, Adriana, he's not. I'm fine with that. I just know it. There was a time in my life when a girl and I made a mistake. Admittedly, we were too young to have kids, and I wasn't planning on getting married at the time. So I know for a fact that my ability to be a father cannot be questioned. But today's circumstances paint a very different picture. You see, I can't be the father of Betty's child because I haven't had intimacy with her in about 4 months. We've been sleeping in separate rooms for 2 months. She cited her insomnia, said she couldn't sleep next to me because I was bothering her. So there's someone else involved. So my darling and sweetheart is sleeping with someone else. I don't even know what to say. Adriana opened her mouth in surprise. Wow, that's something she didn't expect. So Benjamin and Betty had been having problems for a long time too. Hadn't the friend said anything about it? Probably every family had its secrets, and no one wanted to keep it to themselves. Why do you talk about it so calmly? How do you do it? Don't you love your wife? Benjamin glanced at Adriana, then watched an elderly couple strolling leisurely through the park. After a minute, he answered, I already loved one girl. She chose someone else. They love me. I could say that I liked Betty, but I had never felt such a love like that for a girl before. I guess I only loved her, and Betty is just another phase in my life that I realize is ending now. Adriana's throat went dry as he talked about her. Did he really mean Adriana? She was afraid to ask him anything because she was scared to find out the truth. If Benjamin didn't tell her directly, then maybe he was talking about another girl. How to find out? What about this girl? Do you know her fate? Didn't she love you? I thought she did, but I guess I was wrong. So I didn't interfere with her. I hoped she would be happy. It was very important to me that she be happy. But I am still thinking of her, and it is beyond me. Adriana turned pale. Is she happy? She asked quietly. Benjamin also quietly replied, I thought she was, but it is not true. The other man didn't make her happy, and I'm sorry for that. If I had known, I would never have given her to another. But I was a fool if I had. But what is there to talk about it now? I wish I could keep her from disappointment, but it's impossible. We're past that bitter stage of life. I guess we needed it for something. They were both silent, not looking at each other. But Adriana could feel the vibe coming from Benjamin. She realized he was talking about her. She was the girl he had loved back then. And he almost He'd almost admitted his feelings to her without saying so. He was letting her make her own choices. Then she had no choice. Michael proposed to her, and she accepted. And then Benjamin almost confessed his feelings to her. Once again, she had to make a choice. Only she had to know exactly what he was saying about her. Adriana plucked up her courage and asked, "The girl is me, right?" Benjamin looked at her intently and squeezed her hand. "Yes, that's right." Adriana sighed. How much had been piling up on her lately? And just one day that had just turned her life upside down. How was it all going to be digested? Her husband's betrayal, his devious plans for her, Benjamin's confession. What was she supposed to do now? And Adriana shook her head. "I don't know what to say. I've come to tell you what I've learned, but I've also received a new batch of unexpected news. Benjamin, you've always been a good friend to me. P or Paul. I don't think even Michael has treated you as well as I have. But I never knew you had such feelings for me. When we were dating, you never said anything to me. You never once let me know you were serious about me. If I had known that, I would have thought I was just another hobby for you." Benjamin shook his head too. "No, you weren't just another crush?" "I'm sorry I didn't tell you straight. I was stupid, presumptuous. I thought that's how you understood it. I'm sorry it was my mistake that kept us from being together. I didn't see it coming." Yeah, Adriana had gotten enough news by then. She also told Benjamin that Michael and Betty wanted to get rid of her somehow. That news really pissed Benjamin off. He was really pissed off. Adriana told him that she had gone to see her father's friend Ethan, and he had promised her to look into the situation and help her. He asked her not to do anything. He told her to wait for news from him. But Benjamin was more than a little worried. "Do you really feel safe?" "I'm afraid something might happen to you. I wouldn't survive that." "Adriana, maybe we should go to the police?" "Benjamin, don't be ridiculous." "What would I tell them? That I overheard some conversation under the bed? I won't be able to prove anything." "No. I'll wait for Ethan to call me. I don't think Michael's planning on literally eliminating me. I can live with the rest." Benjamin took the girl's hand again. "Adriana, you call if you suspect anything? I'll be on the lookout. I just won't say anything to Betty so as not to scare them off. But I'll be watching her, and I want you to be careful. I care about you a lot, you know." Adriana stroked his cheek, smiled sadly, and whispered how stupid I was. "I chose the wrong man. How ironic. Now you're helping me when you should hate me. You know, I'd like to hope that things can still be different. I'm naive, aren't I?" Benjamin shook his head. "No, you're not naive. You just want to be happy. I really hope that when we've sorted out all this mess in our lives, we'll talk to you about the most important things." Adriana and Benjamin parted ways, agreeing that they would keep each other updated on what was going on. Adriana drove home where Michael met her. He was behaving as usual. Had Adriana not known that Betty was his mistress, she would not have realized that he was different. Adriana had seen a different side of him, and now she wondered how she could have married such a cold and calculating man. Her love for him was suddenly gone. Or maybe it wasn't there at all. Maybe she'd been forcing herself to love him all this time because she was afraid of being alone. Anything's possible. After her father died, she was in a state of inadequacy. A few days later, Ethan called. He said he would send a car for her. Adriana realized that Ethan had some important news because his voice was very excited and serious. When she met Ethan, she heard some very unpleasant news. Adriana, I have to tell you that your husband has turned out to be an even bigger scoundrel than I thought. Don't worry, everything is under control. Adriana turned pale and clutched at her heart that he wanted to kill me. She whispered faintly. Ethan hastened to reassure the girl. No, not at all. That, thank God, is not the case. But if he's been up to such machinations, I think he's capable of such a terrible deed too. Adriana, he's been stealing from you the whole time you've been married. He's been stealing money. He has a lot of accounts where he keeps it all. I think a little more, and your firm will just go bankrupt and you'll be destitute. I think that's how he planned to get rid of you completely. Drain you of your money, and then just divorce you and throw you away like a piece of junk. Adriana, being in a shocked state, just didn't know what to say later. How could he? I trusted him. I trusted him completely. What a horror. What am I supposed to do? Ethan smiled gently at her and stroked her shoulder. You know, he's very cunning, but I'm more cunning. I have proof of his machinations. Don't ask me how I got it. I have my own channels. I have some trusted people who owe me favors, and they've done me several favors. I have a lot of papers in my hands that prove your husband's guilt. Tell me, have you ever signed any documents? Adriana thought for a moment, then shook her head. Maybe a few times when we first got married and he started taking care of the firm's business. I did for a while, but I didn't sign. Ethan nodded. That's what I assumed. Adriana, they forged your signature on all the documents. Didn't you get suspicious that you were the owner of the firm? I never signed anything. You're there. You have to sign every document, every contract. Every piece of paper has to go through a lawyer and through you. I didn't realize it was such a big deal. I thought Michael would handle everything on his own. He always said he was protecting me. Protecting me? Helping me? How could I have known it would end up like this? Did he really keep you safe? Only to protect you from the nervous shock you'd feel if you found out about his shenanigans. You have a wonderful husband, Adriana. Adriana looked at her trembling hands. Her life was just a bubble. She thought everything was great. And now she realized that it was all an illusion. Her whole happy marriage was an illusion. And Adriana, as it turned out, had no use for anyone in that world except her father. And no, the only other person who thought of her was Benjamin. This guy had originally treated her with genuine care and awe, and she didn't see it. Mikkel took advantage of the situation when Adriana's father died. He managed to take over Adriana's firm. He controlled her life, and Adriana went with the flow. But that's not gonna happen anymore. It's time for her to wake up. She has to get rid of everything that's caused her suffering, and Michael must pay for using Adriana for his own gain. She won't give him a penny of the money her father earned. And now she will take her fate completely into her own hands. Adriana looked at Ethan. There was determination and stubbornness in her gaze. Ethan now knew that this girl was her father's daughter. She wouldn't let herself be hurt again. What should I do? Ethan, will you give me a clue? And Ethan gave her a clue. Adriana went to the police with all the evidence of Michael's machinations. She was arrested right at the farm. Adriana arrived with the police, but she entered the office first. Oh, Adriana, why didn't you tell me you were coming? Michael said in surprise. Adriana only grinned. Do I have to warn anyone if I'm going to come to my firm? That's odd. You do when you drive here every morning. You're not the boss. Michael frowned and said, What's wrong with you? You're mean, by God. It's like you've been bitten by a dog. Can I say it was a dog? You bit me, Michael, and I decided to teach you a lesson. I don't know what you're talking about. Are you sick? What the hell are you talking about? Adriana opened the office door, letting the police in. You, Mikhail, will pay for everything you've done. And you know what I mean. You decided to take everything from me and then get rid of me. Plus, you won't succeed. I know that. And your Betty won't be able to enjoy my wealth. You can tell her that if she comes to see you in prison, if she did, Michael was fighting. He screamed that none of it was true. He swore he loved her. He was on his knees, but Adriana wouldn't listen. If she hadn't seen with her own eyes that Michael was cheating on her, maybe she would still have doubted. He was very convincing, even crying. He looked at Adriana with his eyes, a battered dog. But the girl was no longer able to be roused. Michael was clearly afraid of losing everything, but it was not his property. It was all Adriana's legacy to us. Michael was defended by a good lawyer. The guy sincerely repented of what he had done, and this was a mitigating circumstance. He only got 5 years. Apparently, Michael's defense did its best to make sure the guy didn't get a big sentence. Maybe there was a bribe involved. Adriana didn't know. She didn't care. She filed for divorce. They were divorced quickly. Adriana was never the same again. She was fully immersed in the affairs of the firm. She congratulated the staff. She surrounded herself with only people she could trust. She fired everyone her husband worked with. Only the loyal staff who had worked with her father remained. Now Adriana was not like their reduced girl who always relied on her husband. She had become a real iron lady who ran her own business. Of course, she had Ethan to help her. Now the girl often communicated with him, counseled him. She was grateful to him for the fact that he took such a part in her fate. If not for him, Adriana would already be a beggar. After all the proceedings, Adriana and Ethan went to her father's grave. The girl thanked her father for raising her. She knew that because of him, she was able to get out of a terrible situation in her life. She remembered the picture that had fallen in the hallway back then. It was because of that she remembered Ethan. And then the girl left Ethan alone near the grave, and the older man quietly said aloud to Sergei, "But you have prepared a real test for me. I got so many gray hairs while I was saving your business and your daughter. Couldn't you find a husband for her yourself? Married to that scoundrel. Poor girl, she almost lost your inheritance, and you're out there relaxing." All right. I'm kidding, of course. I really wanted to thank you for your daughter, who has become as close to me as if she were my own. I thank you for leaving me this gift. I didn't have children of my own, but I had the best friend I ever dreamed of. And I will always be there for your daughter. Thank you, friend. Sleep well. 6 months passed. Adriana was already divorced. She was busy with the firm. She didn't think about her personal life at all. She tried not to think about her ex-husband and his mistress. As soon as the trial started, she stopped talking to Betty and Benjamin. She didn't care. Benjamin did not call or write to her. Apparently, he was dealing with his wife too. It wasn't until 6 months later that Adriana saw Benjamin. He came to her office. Adriana didn't expect to see him. "Benjamin, it's so good to see you. You have some business to attend to. Or are you just stopping by?" "I have both business and pleasure. Are you in a hurry?" Benjamin asked uncertainly. Adriana looked at her watch. "I have 20 minutes, and then I have to go on business." "How are you doing? Are you still with Betty?" Benjamin shook his head, looking Adriana straight in the eyes. Adriana felt relieved, as if she had been relieved of a formidable burden. She hated that the vile woman was his wife. She was afraid to admit to herself that she felt so bad at the thought. And when Benjamin shook his head, Adriana rejoiced. "No, we are not together. After all those events, we broke up and then divorced. You know, it turns out she had a lot of lovers. She'd been cheating on me for a long time, looking for a better replacement.
She didn't even know who the kid was with. She had a miscarriage, by the way. I think that after the divorce, she chose the best candidate of all, and has already jumped out to marry another loser. Adriana was silent. It was sad that such strange things happened in life. People broke their destinies to fit their circumstances. If Benjamin's business hadn't failed then, Betty would still be with him. She wouldn't be looking for a rich lover in hopes of marrying him and making herself financially secure. If she had not gotten involved with Michael, Adriana would still have trusted her husband. Maybe she'd be in the pulpit by now. Maybe Michael would have taken everything he could from her by now. In an amazing coincidence, a few people were hurt. But Adriana had gained something more. She had gained faith in herself and in her own strength, and now she was a worthy daughter of her father. Adriana sighed and looked at her watch again. Benjamin was silent. She never knew why he had come to see her. She was very busy, and she had no time to play the silent game. "I'm sorry, I have to go. I'm really in a hurry." "I hope everything is going well for you." Adriana stood up. Benjamin stood up silently as well. For a minute, they looked at each other. Then Adriana picked up her bag and went to the door. Benjamin followed her. They walked out of the office. Adriana hugged Benjamin and kissed him on the cheek. And then a spark literally went between them. They both felt it. Adriana blushed, Benjamin turned pale. She said goodbye to him and was about to leave when he grabbed her hand. "How long are we going to play these games? You realize it's pointless. As time goes on, we keep ignoring the obvious. You know what I mean? You know how I've felt about you all these years. I can't go on without you, Adriana. I can see that you care about me too. There's nothing to stop us now. Let's try to start over. If you don't want to, just say so. I never bothered you again. I'm gone forever." Adriana just looked at him. It felt so good on her soul, as if she had always waited for this moment. Why did it have to take years for them to finally be able to say such important things to each other? Had it always been like this? She stroked his cheek, ignoring the interested stares of the firm's employees. "No, I don't mind. I don't mind at all. If that's what you came for, I'm doubly glad to see you." Benjamin exhaled as if he hadn't been breathing the whole time. "Oh, Adriana, my heart was always beating so fast when she was near. But now I was so afraid you were eating me up, I thought it wasn't even beating." They stood embraced for a few minutes, eyes closed. And then Adriana whispered to Benjamin, "I'm really late. I don't want to run away from your embrace, but I have to go. Come to my house at Ipa, and in the evening I live there too. I'll be waiting for you." Benjamin let go of her, smiled, nodded, and kissed her hand. Michael served his entire sentence. He had paid for his devious plans and schemes. He was released a week ago. He was glad to be free, but in the past week his joy had completely evaporated. He felt as if his life force had been sucked out of him, and because he'd seen his ex-wife and ex-lover in the same day. If one was at the top of the ladder of life's prosperity, the other was at the bottom. And this striking contrast between the two women was so strong that it finished Michael completely. He came to his former home, or rather to Adriana's home. It was now the luxurious mansion he had once lived in. Adriana was living with her new husband. Michael was unpleasantly surprised when he learned that Adriana had married Benjamin, his former friend. The creep was always looking at Adriana. Michael knew that he liked her, and he was proud that he was the one who got Adriana. But it was obvious that Benjamin was still riding him around the bend. Benjamin was now enjoying all the privileges of a rich life. Another piece of news was that Adriana was pregnant. Michael saw them coming out of the mansion. Benjamin was carefully holding Adriana under his arm. He helped her into the car and closed the door behind her. Then he got behind the wheel of her luxury foreign car. "Will you pay for it?" "For it," whispered Michael.
but he knew there was nothing he could do to them. He was a criminal. He was an ex-con. He had nothing. He'd lost everything. He should never have gotten involved with that Betty, huh? Everything was ruined because of her. Michael decided he needed to see his ex-lover. He needed to talk to her, to tell her all the wrongs, to insult her, to hurt her too. He wanted to humiliate her. Michael knew Betty's address. He hoped she had lived there after the divorce. He went to her apartment, rang the doorbell for a long time. He heard some noise at the door, but no one opened the door for a long time. Then some strange man with a bare torso, he wearing crumpled sweatpants, opened the door. "Oh, buddy, it's my turn. You're early. I've got another half hour. I'm not giving up my time." Michael didn't get it. He said, "I don't know what you're talking about, buddy. I need Betty. I just need to tell her something. She lives here." The man grinned. "Betty, you need? What business? All right. I'll let you talk to her a little today. They're here to see you, just for a little while. You still owe me half an hour." The man left, and Michael stared in horror at the woman who stood before him. She was in a nightmarish state, pale but with brightly painted eyes and lips. She looked like an old shabby doll. She was wearing an old facial robe through which her bare breasts showed through. On her feet were high-heeled shoes. Her hair was dry tires. They were gathered into a careless knot, but a lot of straight strands had gotten knocked out. In addition to the oddly astonishing hairstyle, she was also drunk on top of everything else. "Betty, what happened to you?" "Shocked?" Michael asked. Betty was not immediately able to focus her eyes on him, but as she gradually peered in, she was able to recognize him. But she ignored his question, or maybe she just didn't want to answer about Michael. He'd come from prison. He came out and came straight to me. "I'm afraid you have no money, eh? I'm an expensive little thing now. I'm obviously out of your price range, though maybe out of old friendship. Still, I'll do you a favor just this once. You must have missed the women, haven't you? Were you lonely out there, sweetheart? Well, you can come back in half an hour. I'm just in the middle of something. I can't stand here with you right now. Gennady gets very angry if I don't give him the time he paid all the chow for. Waiting for you, my pretty boy?" And Betty slammed the door, and Michael ran out of the entryway as if a swarm of bees were chasing him. Oh, how awful. Betty floundering at the bottom. And he knew he couldn't say anything to her. He didn't even want to see her anymore. And now Michael was sitting in the park. He didn't know what to do, but he realized that his life would never be the same again. And it was his own fault.